The AP preseason rankings poll is out, and we got to talk about it. I want to start with saying a lot of this you're going to find on my 134, which you can read at foxsports.com. I ranked all 134 teams. It is meaty. It is robust. It is over 15,000 words. It is the ultimate college football ranking, and the top 25 is the most important part of that ranking, and I will continue to rank the top 25 teams in football for the entire season going into offseason, as you very well know. But I wanted to start by talking about just what the AP has here and what I like and what I don't like. So they got Georgia and Ohio State at 1 and 2, respectively. I have those two flipped. The coaches poll also has Georgia and Ohio State at 1 and 2. I'm not really that concerned about it because I think we all agree that that's the national championship game that we probably want to see the most. We think the same about Oregon and Texas. Basically identical there with Oregon at 3 and Texas at, or Oregon at 4. Oregon at 3 and Texas at 4. I got those flipped, right? I think that we're talking about the SEC and Big Ten championships, respectively. And then it gets to be a little bit interesting at 5. Why is Kalen DeBoer getting the Alabama Nick Saban bounce, right? Not the Alabama bounce, but the Nick Saban bounce. I have a couple of reasons that I think this is true. A, we tend to think that excellence remains at Alabama because of the pedigree of coach that they hired and how much Nick Saban believes in Kalen DeBoer. He had a lot to say about who was going to succeed him, as it is, well, the most significant retirement in college football in the 21st century for me. And then we have to talk about Kalen DeBoer being one of the most successful head coaches in all of college football, because that man has won over 100 games and he's lost just 12. Like, he's lost the equivalent of an entire regular season over the course of his career that's going on 20 years plus. I think having Alabama at 5 is fine. It's fine. I don't hardly disagree with it. I think they're a top 10 team. I just don't think they're a top 5 team. I think that Jalen Milroe is got the highest ceiling of any of the quarterbacks in college football, but it is a man that still needs to learn how to throw the football in intermediate routes, and they're replacing a lot at wide receiver. Well, not even replacing a lot. They haven't had a lot at wide receiver. Isaiah Bond was the best pass catcher at Alabama last year. He had just 668 receiving yards on 48 catches. You need more. You need more production. If Jeremy Bernard is your number one, I need that guy to be Rome Odunze for Washington last year, and Jalen Milroe to come be Michael Penix Jr., right? Like, I think you're going to need that kind of output from Alabama if you expect to contend for a top 5 spot. I also think that we are really all in on a new coaching staff in Kane Womack as defensive coordinator and Nick Sheridan as offensive coordinator. And then you're adding guys that I think are great on defense, like Damani Jackson, to a group that is led by Malachi Moore on the back end. And you get Caden Proctor back, but again, a top 5 program, I'm just not sold on that with Alabama right now. There's time, and I think they're going to get a really great opportunity to show that with going to Camp Randall to play Wisconsin, take a bye week, and then you get Georgia, and then you get to prove this, right? So that could be 1 versus 5 if the season plays out the way that we think it will play out. I also think Texas being at number 4 here is really saying a lot about what we think about everybody returning to Texas. Steve Sarkisian, Pete Kwiatkowski, Quinn Ewers. Yes, they lost C.J. Baxter, but they have a lot of depth at tailback. Trey Wisner, I think, is going to be the guy to break out in that backfield, as we know that Jaden Blue is all speed all the time. On the outside, you're going to have guys like Jonte Cook, which I think is great. Silas Bolden, Isaiah Bond, Amari Niblack at tight end. And then you got better on the defensive line with Trey Moore coming from UTSA, Ethan Burke on the other side of that. We'll just see if they're better in pass defense. I think as we get down here, they're higher on Notre Dame than I am. I think Notre Dame is a top 25 team. I'm not sold on number 7. The reason is kind of the same thing with Alabama. You have a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterback. Now, I think Notre Dame is getting the benefit of us knowing that Riley Leonard is a baller and that Mike Denbrock coordinated the best scoring offense in the country last year and the Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels at LSU last year. If Mike Denbrock can sprinkle whatever salt he put on Jaden Daniels last year on Riley Leonard, I'm all here for it. But the fact is, Sam Hartman showed up as the ACC's all-time leader in touchdown passes, and he couldn't get Notre Dame to where they wanted to go, which is to a national championship, right? They lost that game to Ohio State, and then they lost to Louisville, so on. I think they got a big one against a team that's ranked number 10 here in Florida State in November 9th, right? I think that that's a top 5 program. They think it's a top 10 program. Basically, I got Alabama at 9. They got Alabama at 5. I got Florida State at 5. They got them at 10. Mike Norvell has his program right where he wants it. Okay? They added a 5-star talent in DJ Uiagalelei. They need him to play like a 5-star talent. They need to get production from all these new pieces that they got. Feels like they got half of Alabama's roster over there, the guys that decided not to return to Alabama, including Wardell Williams, Terrence Ferguson. And we're going down the line here. You got Fentrell Cypress on defense. You got Patrick Payton on defense. And you've got a schedule that sets up to where you can show up and show out and probably go back and win the ACC title. Remember, this is a team that went 13-0 until they lost. Well, they went 12-0, lost the starting quarterback, right? And then managed to beat Louisville for the ACC championship. I think Florida State is a very good football team. At 11 and 12, Missouri, Utah, 2 teams that could make the college football playoff for the first time. That's cool, right? We're also putting a lot into just what Missouri has as a schedule, which I think is the easier path in the SEC to get to the SEC championship, but also to get into the college football playoff. They're really not going to get challenged until late in the season. And a big one for them is going to be number 16, Oklahoma, who I got up there in the top of the teams. Basically, they got Oklahoma where I got Notre Dame. I think that Missouri is setting themselves up to have a pretty damn good spot. They were ended last season after the Cotton Bowl win as the number 7 program in the country. They're beginning this season as the number 8 team in the country, and they're beginning this season as number 11. Utah is about Cam Rising and Kyle Whittingham. When Cam Rising has been the starting quarterback for a full year, Utah has been able to win Pac-12 championships and win Rose Bowls. I think going into the Big 12, they are the favorite to win the league, but it's a stout league. It's a robust league. It's a good league. LSU at 13, I like LSU a lot better than the AP voters. I got them at 7, right? But I also think that's got a lot to do with how they've been able to recruit, how they've been able to develop, and frankly, Blake Baker being the defensive coordinator. If it was Matt House, I think I would still feel how many people feel about LSU, which is they're good, but not good enough. They won 10 games with basically a defense that wasn't any good at all. Right? It was Jaden Daniels, Brian Thomas Jr., and Malik Neighbors that we knew by name. Harold Perkins didn't look like the guy we saw in 2022. I think he's going to move back outside, and we're going to see him become one of those guys that we're talking about for the Buckets Award. Clemson at 14. Okay, that means August 31st is going to be number 1 versus number 14, and I think that Garrett Riley has a lot to prove in that game. Remember, Garrett Riley was Texas Christian offensive coordinator fresh off a Broyles Award win. When they played Georgia in the national championship game, got the worst bowl beating in bowl history, 65-7. So there's nothing Kirby Smart hasn't seen from Garrett Riley that makes him feel some sort of upset. I think Garrett Riley's got to ride Cade Klubnik and ride it on out, because if they go get a win against Georgia, these rankings are going to change dramatically, especially for me, because I'm putting a lot of stock into Georgia winning that game by a couple of touchdowns. I think that Georgia has to win that football game. I've talked about Oklahoma at 16, top 25 program. They got a tough schedule. There's no Vanderbilt on the schedule like there is for Texas, but that's beside the point, right? Oklahoma's got a road, man. You got Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri, LSU, all on the schedule this year with Texas. Like, that's a lot. We're asking Seth Luttrell and Jackson Arnold to do a lot of work here. We're asking Zach Alley in year 1 to turn that defense into the kind that can win an SEC championship. We'll wait and see. Oklahoma State at number 17 is interesting. That means they will open the season against number 1 FCS South Dakota State, but they're opening at number 17 after playing in the Big 12 championship and returning an offensive line that was great last year and a tailback that was greater. I think they're they are underrated. They return almost everybody that they need. They got a 7th-year quarterback in Alan Bowman who can sling it. They got Brennan Presley on the outside. They got Rashad Owens on the outside. Ollie Gordon is still going to be a dude that's probably going to rush 1,500 yards. The defense holds up. Look out. Oklahoma State, they could be right there in the conference championship game with Utah, playing for their first opportunity to make the college football playoff. Number 18, Kansas State. I think Avery Johnson is who we're watching there, along with DJ Giddens, Dylan Edwards. Can they run the football? And can Avery Johnson find guys downfield? I think Matt Wells is a great offensive coordinator, and he's going to have them go in the right direction. We all know that Chris Kleiman is one of the better football coaches in the sport, having won FCS national championships and a Big 12 championship at Kansas State. Remember, his Kansas State Wildcats knocked off undefeated Texas Christian with the now transferred Will Howard to Ohio State. Finishing out the top 25, Miami at 19. I have basically Miami at 26. I got Iowa State in there, and where they don't. I think that Iowa State's a better football team than Miami right now, but that's about what Matt Campbell has been able to do over the course of the season and also what Mario Cristobal has not been able to do over the course of the season. That said, they got Cam Ward and they got Xavier Restrepo. They got guys for which they can compete. Like they should contend in the ACC. I'm just not sure that they're going to win the ACC or finish with a better record than Iowa State, frankly. And then we got A&M at 20, another team that's looking to break into the college football playoff, if not win its first conference championship since 1998 and its first national championship since 1939. Mike Elko, Colin Klein, got a lot of work to do over there, but Connor Wigman is a great quarterback. I think they're going to find ways to win games that they otherwise wouldn't and earn that number 20 ranking. 21 Arizona, we're putting a lot into what we saw out of Noah Fafita last year, replicating that. But was that Brennan Carroll's offense or was that Brent Brenneman's offense that because Brent has got a new offense here. We'll see. Number 22, AP's got Kansas, which I think is great. I think Jalen Daniels being healthy gives them every opportunity. Lance Leipold is one of my favorite coaches, one of the most successful coaches in football. Like, he's up there with Kalen DeBoer. And as far as how we should think about him, and Kansas is not playing a single game at home because they're renovating the stadium, but they're going to be playing at Sporting KC and Arrowhead for a few games, and we'll see how that affects them. SC at 23, coming off 7-5. Miller Moss looks like the starting quarterback there. We're going to get to find out once and for all if it's Lincoln Riley or it's the quarterbacks, because that guy, if you play quarterback for him, you're probably getting drafted number 1 overall. You're probably going to win the Heisman Trophy because that's what Baker Mayfield did. That's what Kyler Murray did. My God. I'm thinking about the riches. Caleb Williams did. Jalen Hurts finishes second. Leads them to the college football playoff. If Miller Moss has got the goods, we'll find out. North Carolina State, that's just everybody's stand-in, I think. I don't have North Carolina State that high because North Carolina State's going to win between 7 and 9 games. They're not going to win 10. They're probably not going to lose 6. So, I mean, we'll see, right? Like, I would really like to see North Carolina State take the leap into being an ACC title contender as opposed to just decent. And then number 25, Iowa. Phil Parker, my God, that defense. Ridiculous the last 3 years. That is the reigning Broyles Award winner. If the offense with Tim Lester even has a pulse, they're going to be a problem for everybody they play in the Big Ten for that reason. Rounding out those receiving votes, Louisville with 111, Virginia Tech at 77, Boise State getting some love, 47, SMU getting some love, 33, Iowa State getting some love for 33, and Liberty getting some love with 32. Washington got 23. I don't see that. That's people that just haven't seen the wholesale change that has been Washington football. All the guys that made them the number 2 ranked program, the national title runner-up last year, are gone. But maybe it is because they're not ranked, right? Which is what I can say for most. Nebraska got points in here, and Wisconsin got points in here. Colorado even got a vote. There it is. Somebody. Wasn't me. We'll talk more about the college football playoff and AP rankings, but this is a great starting point, and I can't wait to talk more about it with you on the other side.